All right, here we are, Sports Bit, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, weekend preview edition, loaded show. 3 games to go over, big game breakdown, NFL, all on national TV. Then we get to the fight. Two $1 million bets yesterday in Las Vegas on Mayweather. We'll get to that coming up, and the play of the day. Base brawl, 2 of them in the same game. Yankees and the Tigers, Teddy. Expect a lot of suspensions here. This game was nuts. We even saw a takedown by the catcher. Cabrera tried to throw some shots. Guys got hit in the head. Girardi was ripping Osmus. This was bananas.
It was fun. I mean, as a fan, it's fun. Of course, you could say there might be a few suspensions for this game. And certainly, bettors need to be aware of possible suspensions for these teams tonight, particularly the New York Yankees. They could lose Cabrera. They could lose Romine. And, of course, Gary Sanchez has been, red hot for the Yanks. He could be missing from tonight's game as well. So, last night, fun brawls, but there may well be repercussions moving forward for both the Yanks and the Tigers, certainly when we talk about their games this evening.
This is a horrible beat here. This was the Nationals-Astros total, which was 8. It was 3-0 in the bottom of the 8th. Then the bullpens got involved, and the Nationals blew it, and it went to extra innings, and they both scored in the 11th. So 3-0 in the bottom of the 8th becomes a 5-4 final.
Well, 3-1 in the bottom of the 9th. Forget the bottom of the 8th. When you have an under 8 ticket and it's 3-1 in the bottom of the 9th, you're feeling pretty good about that wager. I mean, Strasburg, Keuchel, both really sharp between them, allowed 2 earned runs and 7 hits over 13 combined innings, but Brandon Kinsler couldn't close the door. Astros with 2 to tie it, and as you mentioned, both teams scored in the 11th to wreck the under. Pauly, we talk about more bad beats when it comes to MLB unders than any other wager. This was another one of them. Whew.
Here's a bad beat. A bad beat. Also a bad bet in the same game, or bet for the books rather. Carolina Pick'em up to 1. It fell 1. Jacksonville went for 2 with 5 minutes left. It didn't get it. And the under was pounded from 43 to 41, and that went over.
Yeah, I mean, week 3 preseason games aren't known for cashing a whole lot of under bets. And the offenses in both games clearly ahead of the defenses last night. As you see on the board, the betting board, the totals for week 3 higher than you're going to see for any other preseason weekend. All that under money. There was some weather factor involved in the under money, but the books got to keep all of that. But the books did not enjoy the missed 2-point conversion. You already know what happened on the missed 2-point conversion, Pauly. You didn't watch the game. You didn't look at the box score. I don't even need to tell you. Yeah, you know what it was. It was a Blake Bortles interception on the potential game-winning 2-point conversion. Basically every side bet on this game either cashed or pushed. That, not a good result for the house.
And 2 more bad bets before we get to the games. Why would you bet against the Dodgers? I don't care who's out. Pirates took money plus 145 down to plus 125. Dodgers now have 90 wins already, and the Angels were a bad bet. They took money. Hard to win when you get shut out at home.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the bettors were thinking the Dodgers might have a hangover after the lost no-no in the 10th. And, of course, there was no Corey Seager or there was no Bellinger last night, but no problem. What was it? Chris Taylor, 3 hits. 3 other guys had home runs. Taylor now hitting .313 for the season, giving them the leadoff spark at the top of the order that they really needed early in the campaign. And you nailed it, Pauly, when it comes to the Angels. L.A. took heavy money last night, but you can't cash a winning wager if you don't score any runs.
All right, up next, big game breakdown. We'll get to the 3 national TV games Sunday in the NFL. Bears, Titans, Bengals, Redskins, and the 49ers and Vikings. Plus the fight on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, time for big game breakdown. Visit the sportsbookreview.com bonus page for the BetOnline bonus offers. Always sponsored and powered by BetOnline. Exceptional customer service, strong promotions, and every type of wager that bettors are looking for. Bears and the Titans Sunday on Fox Television. Titans are 3-43 the total. Trubisky getting work with the first-team offense this week. Maybe Glennon knows his time is short in Chicago. We're going to read a lot of quotes here in these next 3 games about the preseason because it's more about stuff. You can't measure this stuff with stats. So we want to go with a lot of the quotes today. John Fox I'm trying to keep the pressure low. Quote, it's a true evaluation. That's what we're trying to do. We're doing that at all positions, not just the quarterback position. Trubisky, I would say I've shown them what I can do. I've progressed faster than anyone expected I would. I've still got a long way to go, and I know that, but I think I've shown that I've earned these reps, and I just need to continue to get better every day. Everyone likes him so far. He's played well, which begs the question, why'd you give Glennon all that money?
Well, they gave Glennon all that money before they traded up to draft Trubisky. But, I mean, let's be real about what we're seeing now in Chicago. We've seen Mitch Trubisky the first couple of weeks light up second and third string defense. Very different story when you're playing with the starters in the week 3 walkthrough going against a first string defense. This is going to be a tough test for Mitch Trubisky. But you made a great point at the top, Pauly, talking about how you're not going to find stats. You know, this isn't a situation where we got a ton of graphics with look at this stat, look at that stat. Stats don't win preseason games. Information wins preseason games. What we try to do with the quotes is give you the information about what the key players and key coaches are thinking about heading into the ball game. Hopefully that will help you in your endeavor in trying to make some money beating week 3 NFL preseason this weekend.
A lot of people like Tennessee to win the division. I can't blame them, and see if all these pieces can come together on offense. They've added a lot of pieces from Mariota. Last few years, you get Murray and Henry in the backfield, Davis, Matthews, Decker at wide receiver, Smith at tight end, and then Conklin and Jones on offensive line. They have a good 1-2 punch in the running back. I love the acquisition of Davis, taking him high in the draft out of Western Michigan, and he also bring in Decker, so Mariota finally has some guys to throw to, and that he can trust.
I mean, this team has a ton of upside. Tennessee has Super Bowl caliber upside when you talk about how good this team could be if everything comes together. But when you look at the pieces that they've added, and Mariota's been good. He's been phenomenal in the red zone. He's been good overall. But this is a revitalized offense with a ton of weapons and a strong offensive line. And you look at the running game. You know, forget Mariota. You look at the running game. You know, you have DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. And Henry, through preseason game, more than 3.1 yards after contact per carry. He has the potential to be a real beast in this offense, potentially a real beast on Sunday night, trading carries with DeMarco Murray in this game where Tennessee laying a field goal at home looks to be perhaps the right side in this one.
Okay, game number 2, powered by BetOnline. It's also the doubleheader on Fox Sunday, the Bengals and the Redskins. Skins at home, 344 the total, 44 off-market number, most books at 43 or 43.5. Cousins, first significant time with the first-team offense, which means the first time without Jackson and Garcon. Got to build a rapport with Pryor. Also, Reed could be back off the PUP list for the first time. He missed 4 weeks of camp. Cousins' quote, with some of the stuff we're working on, goes back to the fact that as good as Pryor is, as talented as he is, there's still a lot more out there. And now you got to get this rapport going with Pryor. It's a huge loss that Jackson leaves and Garcon leaves.
Yes and no. I mean, I think the markets have reacted pretty strongly to the loss of 2 playmaking receivers for the Washington Redskins. But Terrell Pryor was pretty darn good last year. Look at this quote from Pryor about finally getting a chance to work with Cousins and get some of the kinks out. Quote, we started hitting it and we started clicking it and making it work. And then we started hitting them every time because it's just a timing thing. On that particular play that I'm talking about, Kirk doesn't normally take a hitch. But when you're getting bump man coverage, he takes a hitch because he knows it's going to take a little bit more time to shake the guy off, get vertical, and then break it at the right depth. It's a Redskins passing game that we can expect to have some growing pains, especially with Cousins really getting his first legitimate playing time with the first stringers against a first string defense. But don't think for a minute that just because Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garcon are gone, that Washington's passing game isn't going to work. They still have weapons.
Well, the quarterback doesn't want to be there. That's an issue, too. Cincinnati now, they have issues. Some key cogs, Ioka, Kirkpatrick, Bernard, John Ross, can't get on the field and may not play the entire preseason. Marvin Lewis, quote, obviously, I'd like to see all 90 guys, when we had 90, be out there all the time. We know that's not going to happen as much as we can. I think it's important for guys to have an opportunity to play, but if they don't, they don't, end quote. The biggest problem is safety. Not only Ioka missing time, but Sean Williams also out with a dislocated elbow. Here's Ioka, the kid from Boise State. Sometimes you have to deal with the cards that are dealt to you in terms of certain things, especially right now. Sean's projected to be out there however long he is. That Sean Williams is going to be a safety in there. I haven't worked with a lot. You can gain that in practice. And then there's tempo and rhythm and a little conditioning. Nothing replicates game tempo, end quote there. They have some depth at running back behind Bernard. Good backup quarterback play with McCarron, who apparently the Broncos were after, although Elway denied those reports. So if something happens at Dalton, you have McCarron there, although it's a good guy to have in the preseason as well. Any lean here in this one?
Sure. I mean, look, I'm not in any rush to lay points with the Washington Redskins right now. Cincinnati coming off a pretty dismal showing. We like A.J. McCarron as a backup QB in the second half of this ballgame. If I'm playing, I'm probably looking at the dog in this one.
All right, one more. Vikings and the 49ers. Sunday night on NBC. Bet online number, the Vikings 4.5 at home, 42 the total. Mike Zimmer finally got beat. It was at Seattle on Friday, so he's 13-2 straight up and 11-3 ATS in the preseason. Only 8 penalties in the first 2 games combined, but the starting offense needs to do something. Only 3 points on 6 possessions with Bradford. Home debut for Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of issues here for the Vikings, and we know the track record for Mike Zimmer. You said it already: 13-2 straight up, 11-3-1 against the spread in his 15 preseason games. And you talked about how Minnesota's done that. Look, it's not about a player rotation thing for the Vikings. They do not have one of the deepest rosters in the NFL. They do not have great quarterback play once Sam Bradford comes out of the game. What they don't do is beat themselves. They don't make mistakes. The 8 penalties in 2 games is a clear example of that. And that's Mike Zimmer's MO, and that's why this team's been so successful in the month of August. But, of course, now we're in a situation where they're laying 4.5 points. All right. This offense hasn't worked. You said it. 3 points on 6 possessions with Sam Bradford over the first couple of ball games. And, of course, Bradford's got an injury history. All right. Case Keenum's safe at number 2. There's a chance we could see a fair bit of Mitch Leidner in this one, the former Golden Gophers quarterback, in the second half of this contest. Leidner just signed this week after Tyler Heineke got hurt. That's not a team I'm going to lay 4.5 points. Let's put it this way. If we get specific information that Leidner's playing the second half of this ballgame, Minnesota immediately comes off the card. The offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur, at least on the short list, quote, you want to keep developing the quarterback position throughout the season, and especially during training camp, so that if for some reason you need a guy, you have a guy ready to go. Again, the final roster decision is a couple of weeks away, so we'll have to wait and see. Mitch Leidner is not an NFL quarterback. He was barely a college quarterback at Minnesota.
No, good point. I agree with you there. The 49ers, horror show at home last week against the Broncos. They were blown out and embarrassed. They only had 12 first downs and 240 yards. They scored one of their touchdowns on a kickoff return in the fourth quarter. They can't get it in sync with Shanahan's playbook. 2.6 yards per carry when the starters have been on the field. And left tackle Joe Staley, a 12-year vet. I think one of the things that even I wasn't expecting was how detailed you have to be in everything as far as the run game. Aiming points, everyone's got to be on the same page. Running backs, linemen, receivers, everybody for it to work. Shanahan, quote, that's what football's about. And that not everyone realizes. It takes 11 guys to execute a play. Usually the guy who has the ball in his hands, the guy who's rewarded or blamed. But I've been happy with Carlos Hyde's reps in the preseason. I definitely want to get better here. I mean, it was bad, which was strange because they played well against Kansas City, and C.J. Beathard has looked good so far in preseason. But when you have a quarterback battle too, that was cause for concern when you were run out against Denver.
No, they didn't play well against Kansas City. They rallied in the fourth and scored 18 points in the fourth quarter of that ball game. And that's one of the dangers.
Well.
When you look,
Beathard was great in that game.
Sure, but again, that's in the fourth quarter going against guys that aren't going to be on a roster in 2 weeks. When you're talking about a preseason week 3 game, a regular season walkthrough, the real scrubs don't see the field this week. So you have an offense that's not working. 12 first downs, 243 yards against the Broncos. Solid defense last week. You have the veteran left tackle saying, gee, this is a really hard offense to pick up. It's not going to happen overnight. You have basically nothing at the quarterback position, and you have a head coach is saying, hey, it's going to take all 11 guys to learn what they have to do before this offense is going to start to work. None of these are bet on quotes, certainly not against Minnesota, a team like that, and a defense like Minnesota. What's this total doing sitting at 42, Pauly? How do these two teams get to 42 points in this one? Initial lean here is towards the under.
All right, here we go. We get to the fight up next. It's the best bet of our lifetime. We'll get to Floyd and Conor coming up and what the true odds should be, and this will be the play of the day as well. And it's not going to be McGregor to win, or excuse me, Mayweather to win. We'll get to all that coming up. $2 million bets Thursday in Las Vegas. We'll run it all down on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
All right, wrapping it up on SportsBet. Betting Insight today. Here we go. Saturday night, Mayweather-McGregor. 575 Floyd as we tape this. Let's start with what the action has been all week in Las Vegas and a couple of good tweets. This is from David Purdom, ESPN Chalk. For all you looking to bet $1 million on Floyd, the deadline to wire the cash into the cage at the MGM is mid-afternoon on Friday. Thursday, MGM took $1 million bet on Floyd. William Hill took a $1.2 million bet on Floyd. Floyd was minus $5 at William Hill, and the bettor will make $240,000 if he wins. That's from Darren Ravel. Matthew Holt, CG Technology. The biggest thing yet, the crazy thing is even if McGregor gets whipped like many project he could actually end up being a bigger dog against Pauly Malignaggi than he is against Mayweather. But why it has to be the best bet of our lifetime, because look at where the odds opened here. February 16th at the South Point, Mayweather was minus 2,700. The takeback was 12-1. So for these guys who are putting big bets down on McGregor, what are you doing? I mean, yesterday there was a guy who bet 50,000 on McGregor at the South Point at plus 450. What are you doing? There was 150,000 at William Hill, also on Conor, and 75,000 at the MGM on Conor. But if you ask bookmakers, what are the true odds of a guy who's never lost, maybe one of the best defensive fighter ever, against a guy who's never stepped in the boxing ring before, they'll probably tell you minus 4,000 or minus 5,000. Yet you see minus 475 offshore or 575, $6 here in Las Vegas. This is absolute lunacy.
Absolute lunacy, Pauly? Let's talk about it for a few minutes. First, we called it minus 575 at the open. And realistically, if you are not shopping for the best line on this fight, you're a fool. You're giving money away. And that's one of the things we love about Sportsbook Review. Sportsbook Review, you can find good access to numbers. Check out the live odds page. Check out the bonus page. And sign up with a sportsbook where you can get a good number, because you can literally, if you want Mayweather right now, Friday morning as we record, you can lay minus 450 with him, or you can lay minus $6 with him. Depends on where you bet. If you want McGregor, you can catch him in the plus 350 range. You can catch him in the plus 450 or plus $5 range. Depends on where you bet. So certainly when you look at the graphic of how the odds have come down at the South Point, but they've reached their low, and all the money came in yesterday. The big bets, the $1 million bets, came in on Mayweather. And we've seen the line legitimately bottom out. And now all the guys who have been waiting, how low is it going to go? How low is it going to go? They're not waiting anymore. So I would anticipate at a lot of books, we're going to see Mayweather money over the course of the next 36 hours. If you like Mayweather, I would bet him. Certainly, if you're betting at a book that caters to sharp players, you got to bet him sooner rather than later.
The other thing, too, I think bettors made a mistake for whatever, I don't know what they're thinking, but the 8-ounce gloves favors Floyd, not Conor. Doesn't matter what Conor has on, he's not going to touch him. So that's why we'll get to the best bet as well. That certainly helps Floyd that they went to the 8-ounce gloves and the Nevada State Athletic Commission buffoonery, allowing that for a one-time only deal. How about Shane Mosley? His quote on Conor, I don't think he has a prayer. His age is an advantage. He's 29, Floyd's 40, so maybe Floyd can't move that well or his time isn't there, but I don't give him a prayer. He will expect Floyd not to punch as hard as he's going to punch, and when he runs at Floyd and gets tagged, he'll think he's a heavyweight and say, what the hell is this? Number two, Floyd has respectable power. He could knock you out even if you went in there careless. When you run at him, you run into a shot. It's like a collision. If McGregor's going to run in, he's going to get knocked out in like the 4th, 5th, or 6th round. He's going to be tired. The cardio is not good. That's me talking. Now, it's going to be a whole different ballgame than the UFC. He won't even understand why he's in the ring. Mayweather has great defense, speed, and underrated power, end quote. And the big thing is, as Mosley hit on, you have a guy who has never been tired in the ring before. His conditioning is off the charts against a guy for his size, who MMA experts say has lousy conditioning. So another huge edge for Floyd.
Yeah, and of course,
just absurd. It's absurd.
Mosley knows, most assuredly. Mosley knows because he's the one guy really who actually hit Floyd Mayweather and hit him hard. Look at the punch. This is back in 2010 when those guys fought here in Vegas. And Mosley did some damage. Of course, Mayweather won the fight. He won it going away by decision. But, for a boxer who has prided himself, who has won all of these fights without getting hit, Mosley hit him. And that being said, but all the boxing guys are saying McGregor has no chance. McGregor has no chance. And all the MMA guys are saying, McGregor's live. Watch out for him. So you're certainly seeing a difference of approach. My biggest issue, Pauly, comes down to one thing. Floyd Mayweather is 40 years old. He's been out of the ring for 2 years. He's a 5-1 favorite or higher. And yet everyone's telling me this is the best bet I've ever seen. This is the best bet I've ever seen. It's a boxing match. Every fighter loses sooner or later, don't they?
Against a guy who's never boxed before? Come on, look at
Does every
the
fighter
two
lose
odds are
sooner or
like
later?
4,000 here, or 5,000.
Here's my question. Only one question. Does every fighter lose sooner or later?
No.
Okay. Well, that's a ridiculous
question. Yeah, he might lose to a guy who's actually a boxer, not a guy who's never stepped in the ring before. Lunacy,
And
Jay Root.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Jay Root,
let me say one thing.
MGM, Iola's article the week. It's been fairly hectic. Not only are we writing a pretty good handle to it, we're writing an enormous amount of tickets, especially on McGregor. That's been occurring for basically 2 months now, which is really odd to write that many tickets that far out from the fight. Traditionally, we take about 90% of the money in the last 36 hours, also from the Iola article on Yahoo. The worst case scenario for us would be if McGregor were to get a TKO or somehow knock out Floyd in the first 4 rounds. That would be disastrous for us. It would rank as the biggest loss in our company's history from a race and sports perspective. I thought they did a great job, too, also at the Westgate during the tour with the press conferences. Conor said, I'm going to knock him out inside of 4 rounds. So the Westgate put a prop up on that. If you like Conor, that's the only way to bet it, which I think the return was as high as 10-1, which people bet that too. And the ticket disparity is off the charts to begin with. But on that, you're not getting any Floyd money on that either. It's all Conor to knock him out in the first 4 rounds too. So I will agree with a couple people at the Westgate. The only way Conor could win is if Floyd broke his ankle or something. He got hurt in the middle of the fight. That's the only way I could see it happen.
All right, let's talk about one, because I was not willing to let you use Mayweather to win as a play of the day. There's no way that I could recommend, all right, here's the best bet I've ever seen. I'm going to lay $5 with a 40-year-old fighter. I understand that it's supposed to be easy money, but the best way to get at this fight from a betting perspective, of course,
well, you disappoint me here. That's one of the few times you've disappointed me on this show. $5.50 is an unbelievable price if the true odds are 4,000.
Sure, but you nailed it when it came to the play of the day. If you want to bet McGregor, the way to bet McGregor is really smart. That Westgate prop, if first 4 rounds makes a ton of sense. 8-1, 9-1, 10-1, reasonable rate of return. If you want to bet Floyd, Pauly, tell them how to bet Floyd. Let's give out this play of the day.
So we factor in cardio. You factor in the great quotes from Shane Mosley. Also the fact Floyd's just going to pick him apart. Ed Graney, who will be at the fight from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, told me he thinks Floyd can end this anytime he wants. I have talked to Al Bernstein, Tim Dahlberg from the Associated Press, and I also saw Max Kellerman do an interview. All 3 of them were asked, will Conor land a significant punch in the whole fight? They all said no. So he will pick him apart. Maybe the corner throws the towel in, or he doesn't get off the stool. I like it under too, by the way. But in any event, this is at William Hill. Shop around because the odds are all over the place. Floyd to win by KO, TKO, or DQ, minus 160 at William Hill. That is the play of the day. And Ed Graney also has a great line. If you order the fight and you don't win at Bet Online, if you order the fight and pay $100, no bitching allowed afterwards. Okay, no complaining allowed because you know what you're getting into before the fight. And there it is. That's it. Another week in the books. Fun to talk boxing. Dress rehearsal of the NFL. 5 games Saturday in college football. We'll be back Monday to recap everything. And that really will be the start of college football on Saturday with some great games that go Labor Day. There's a couple good games on Sunday. And you got Alabama and Florida State on Saturday night. We'll talk to you then on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.